I'm 34. 2 years after Mom passed, our place in Pennsylvania changed in a way I still can't describe. It used to sound like her, pots on the stove, footsteps that meant dinner was almost ready. After the funeral, the house went quiet. Dad kept it clean, took slow walks around the yard, and talked to her picture near the hallway. He'd say, "I built this for you and the kids." He meant it. The mortgage was gone. The title was his. The promise was that it would always be our base. When my brother Jason married Emily, we tried to welcome her. At first, she was polite and careful with her words. She asked about Mom's recipes. She set the table and laughed at Dad's old jokes. We relaxed a little. We wanted that to work. But bit by bit, the house looked different. The photo wall changed to a gallery of their wedding pictures. The living room moved around 3 times in a month. A storage bin with Mom's quilts ended up in the garage to make space. It wasn't one big act. It was a steady push. I told myself not to overreact. This is family. Families adjust. Dad kept the peace. I helped where I could, grocery runs, repairs, bills. I didn't bring problems to the table. I didn't look for fights. Jason and I had always been close, but with Emily around, he started pausing before speaking, like he was checking which side he should stand on. Those pauses grew into silence. One Sunday, Emily asked for a family meeting. She said it like the words had capital letters. We gathered in the living room. She sat on the chair Mom used to love and folded her hands like she was running a briefing. "Ryan," she began, calm but firm, "you're 34. It's time to think about your own place. This house feels crowded, and Jason and I need privacy." Dad turned toward her. "Crowded?" he asked. "This is my house. No one is getting pushed out." She kept her voice smooth. "With all respect, Dad, we've been keeping this place going, paying many of the bills, handling the day-to-day. It makes sense for us to treat it as our home now. And honestly, Ryan isn't contributing enough." The room went still. That line didn't just sting, it bent the air. I had proof to show she was wrong, but I didn't pull it out. I looked at Jason. "You're okay with this?" He didn't meet my eyes. "Maybe it's better if you get your own place for a while," he said. "You've got a steady life. You'll be fine." It was a small sentence, but it said a lot. In that moment, I understood how alone a person can feel in a house they grew up in. When the meeting ended, Dad followed me to the hallway. He put a hand on my shoulder and spoke low, the way he did when he tucked us in as kids. "Don't move out because someone else says so. This house is mine. No one can throw you out." I nodded, but the next weeks wore me down. The kitchen cabinets started locking. Leftovers were portioned without me. My laundry ended up in the garage. A few times, when she walked past, Emily let out lines just loud enough. Some people love a free ride. Each time, Jason stood near her, quiet, eyes on the floor. I tried to swallow it and keep going. I told myself to wait for a better day. But one night, after a long back and forth over who got which shelf and who used too many lights, I packed a bag. Not because I agreed with them, and not because I wanted to give up. I just needed air. Dad called the next morning. "You don't leave your home," he said, steady as a fence post. "Let them play their game. It's not theirs." I didn't say what I knew. After Mom died, Dad made legal changes. The house wasn't only his. It was in a living trust, his and mine together. Jason's name wasn't on it. I kept that fact to myself and waited. That night, I left with one suitcase and my laptop bag. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I stayed with a friend for a few days just to clear my head. I didn't want to run away, but being there, in a house that no longer felt like home, was breaking something inside me. The hardest part wasn't Emily's attitude. It was Jason's silence. He wasn't the kind of brother who yelled or got mean, but his quiet agreement hurt worse. Every time she said something out of line, I'd look at him, waiting for the brother I grew up with. The one who used to pull me into his side and say, "Don't worry, I got this." But that version of him had faded into the background, replaced by someone who nodded along to keep the peace with his wife. At the house, things only got worse after I left. Dad called often, his voice tired but firm. "She's changing the curtains again," he said one day, and moved my chair near the hallway. I don't even recognize my own living room. He tried to keep calm, but I could tell he was getting frustrated, too. Meanwhile, Emily didn't waste a second trying to rewrite the story. To anyone who'd listen, cousins, neighbors, even Dad's old friends, she said I'd left because I couldn't handle growing up. I heard from a family friend that she'd been saying I didn't contribute, that I was lazy and bitter. It hurt, not because it was true, but because Jason didn't stop her. When I visited a week later to check on Dad, the tension was thick. Emily barely greeted me. Jason gave a short nod and went back to scrolling through his phone. The air felt cold, and even the sound of my keys on the table seemed too loud. I dropped off some groceries, filled Dad's prescriptions, and headed out before it turned into another argument. On my way out, Dad walked me to the porch. You did nothing wrong, son, he said. They're trying to make you leave for good. But remember what I told you. This house isn't theirs to claim. I nodded, but a part of me wanted to shout it from the roof, to tell Emily and Jason the truth, that this house wasn't some open prize to be taken, that Dad had already secured it, that I wasn't a guest, I was part owner. But something told me to wait. If they were so sure they'd won, maybe it was better to let them show just how far they'd go. Over the next few weeks, Emily's behavior crossed from rude to cruel. She'd forget to make enough food and then laugh when Dad mentioned it. She'd stack my mail in a pile and accidentally toss it with the junk. Once, she even locked the pantry and claimed she'd lost the key. Jason saw it all. He just didn't say a word. I watched him drift further away from the brother I knew, and it broke something I didn't know could break. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about respect, about family. I tried to talk to him one last time. Jason, I said quietly one night when he came out to grab the mail. You really think this is okay? You really think this is what Mom would have wanted? He paused, then sighed. Ryan, just let it go. Emily's right. You've got a good life. You don't need to be here. We're just trying to build ours. It was the final confirmation. I wasn't wanted. That night, I called Dad again. He told me not to lose hope. Truth doesn't need to shout, he said. It just waits. I didn't know what he meant yet, but soon, I would. Weeks passed. I stayed away, giving everyone space. But every call from Dad carried more frustration. Emily wasn't slowing down. She'd started talking like she owned the place, giving orders to repairmen, changing locks, telling neighbors she and Jason were managing things now. She walks around here like she's the landlord, Dad told me one afternoon. I've stopped arguing. Let her keep showing her hand. That last line stuck with me. I knew Dad was right. Sometimes you don't fight noise with noise. You wait. Because people who think they're in control always push too far. Then one morning, I got a call from our neighbor, Mrs. Donovan. She sounded uneasy. Ryan, she said, I don't know if you know this, but there's a real estate sign outside your house. Emily's been showing it to people. I sat there for a second, thinking I'd misheard. Showing it? As in trying to sell it. That's what it looks like, she said quietly. She had a couple over this morning. Gave them a full tour. I hung up, grabbed my keys, and drove straight there. The moment I turned onto our street, I saw it, a big white for sale sign stuck in the front yard like a victory flag. My heart raced, not from shock, but disbelief. I walked inside and found her standing in the kitchen with two strangers, chatting about the spacious layout and potential upgrades. She turned when she saw me, completely unfazed. Oh, Ryan, we're just in the middle of something. Maybe wait outside. Wait outside. I asked. You're trying to sell a house that doesn't even belong to you. Jason came down the stairs, his face tense. Ryan, just relax. No, you relax, I cut in. Did either of you even ask Dad about this? Emily straightened up. We don't need permission, she said firmly. Jason's the oldest. When your father passes, everything will come to him anyway. We're just getting ahead. It was hard to describe that moment. Hearing her talk like Dad was already gone, like the house was a prize waiting to be claimed. I took a breath, trying to keep my voice calm. You can't just decide that. This isn't yours. Jason rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uneasy. We were just looking at options, that's all. No harm in it. No harm? I asked. You've got strangers walking through Dad's living room. The two buyers exchanged awkward glances and quickly excused themselves. The room fell silent after the door shut. Emily crossed her arms, standing her ground, but I could see the flicker of doubt now that someone had called her out. Ryan, she said, you don't understand how hard we've worked to keep this house running. We're doing what's best for everyone. No, I said, you're doing what's best for yourself. Before she could respond, the front door opened, and Dad walked in. He looked around slowly, eyes landing on the sign outside, then back at Emily. What's going on here? He asked, voice calm but heavy. Emily spoke quickly. We were just exploring options. The house is big and... He raised his hand. Enough. You've said enough. For the first time in weeks, she had nothing to say. Dad turned to me. Let's talk in the living room. As we sat down, I could feel the air shifting, like the truth was about to step into the room. I knew this was it. The moment everything would finally come out. We all sat in the living room. Dad in his chair, me on the couch, Jason by the wall, and Emily standing with her arms crossed. The air was tense, like the quiet before a storm. Dad glanced at the for sale sign through the window, then looked back at Emily. So, he said slowly, you were getting ahead, is that right? Emily hesitated, but didn't back down. We just thought it would be easier to sell now rather than later. Jason's the oldest, and when you're gone, everything will naturally go to him. We're just planning responsibly. Jason shifted uneasily beside her. I could tell he was starting to realize how wrong this looked. Dad leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Planning responsibly? Or planning to take what doesn't belong to you? Emily's voice grew sharper. We've been paying bills, keeping this house together, making sure everything runs smoothly. We've earned the right to make decisions. Dad shook his head slowly. No, Emily. What you've earned is a reminder. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folder. After your mother passed, I made sure this home was protected. It's in a living trust, co-owned by me and Ryan. Jason's name isn't on it. Jason's head snapped up. Wait, what? I stayed quiet. This was the moment Dad had been waiting for. Emily blinked, her face tightening. That's not fair. Jason's your eldest son. We've been living here, maintaining everything. You can't just exclude him. Dad's tone stayed calm, but his words cut clear. You lived here because I allowed it. You helped because you were part of this family. But when you start treating the house like it's your property, showing it off, trying to sell it, that's not family. That's greed. Jason looked down, silent. He didn't defend her this time. I didn't need to speak. Watching the realization spread across their faces was enough. For weeks, they'd acted like I was a guest, like I didn't belong. And now the truth was sitting right in front of them, signed in notarized. Emily took a deep breath and said, We didn't mean any harm. We were just trying to. Dad interrupted, his voice firm. You don't put up a for sale sign without the owner's consent. You don't invite strangers into someone else's home. And you don't treat family like they're disposable. Jason finally looked up, his voice quiet. Dad, we made a mistake. Dad leaned back in his chair. Yes, and now you'll make it right. He stood, placed the folder on the coffee table, and spoke with a finality that filled the room. You both have 30 days. After that, I want you out. Find your own place. Build your own home. This one stays with the people who still understand what it means to care for each other. Emily stared at him, stunned. You're kicking us out. I'm asking you to live the life you've been trying to claim, Dad said. This house doesn't belong to you. It never did. She turned toward Jason, waiting for him to argue, but he didn't. He just stood there, eyes on the floor. I stayed silent, not because I wanted to see them hurt, but because there was nothing left to say. Some lessons don't need words. They just need time to settle. When Dad called the realtor to cancel the listing, the weight of weeks lifted off my chest. Finally, the truth wasn't a secret anymore. It was out, and it was solid. As the call ended, Dad looked at me and nodded. Sometimes, you don't need to fight. You just need to let them hang themselves with their own rope. And that's exactly what had happened. Emily left the room first, muttering under her breath. Jason followed slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. Before stepping out, he turned back toward me, his face drained of the certainty he once had. I didn't know it was like this, he said quietly. I thought. He stopped mid-sentence, then just nodded. I'm sorry. I wanted to respond, but nothing came out. Some apologies need time to mean something. This wasn't the moment for words. Over the next few days, the house turned tense again, not from shouting, but from silence. Emily started packing early, slamming drawers, making calls to relatives, and telling anyone who'd listen how unfair everything was. She painted herself as the victim, saying we'd betrayed her, that Dad had played favorites, that I'd manipulated the situation. But this time, no one believed her. Word spread quickly through the family, and even the cousins she tried to win over stopped replying to her messages. The truth had a calm, steady way of settling in. Jason kept mostly to himself. He didn't argue with Dad anymore. He didn't defend her. Sometimes I'd find him standing by the back door, staring out at the yard, the same yard we used to play catch in as kids. I think he knew exactly what he'd lost, not just the house, but trust. When the 30 days passed, they packed up their things. Emily's parents helped load the moving truck. She didn't say goodbye. Jason did, but only with a small nod before closing the door behind him. Watching them drive away, I didn't feel victorious, just tired. That evening, the house was quiet again, but not cold, not tense. Peaceful, like the walls could finally breathe. Dad and I sat on the porch, the sky painted in soft gold and pink. He looked at the yard and said, She wanted a house. But what good is a house when you've lost your home? I nodded. For a long time, I'd blamed myself, for leaving, for staying quiet, for not standing up sooner. But now, sitting beside him, I understood. Sometimes walking away isn't surrender. It's giving truth a chance to speak. Weeks later, Jason called. His voice was different, quieter, more careful. He said he was sorry again, said he hadn't realized how far things had gone. I told him I needed time. Trust doesn't rebuild in a day. But I was willing to try, for Dad's sake, and maybe for the brother I used to know. As for Emily, I heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved out of state. Apparently, she still tells people her greedy in-laws stole her home. Maybe one day, she'll understand that homes aren't taken, they're built. With love, respect, and truth. Now, Life here feels simple again. The furniture's back where it used to be. Mom's quilts are out of the garage. The house feels warm, lived in, whole. Dad often says, let people believe they've won. Truth always collects what it's owed. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.